All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee with the Mayor and City Manager. Today is Friday, February 3rd, and we're so happy to have you all here. What we'll do is what we do generally is we'll go through updates of common interest in Lake Havasu City, and then afterwards we'll answer any questions that you may have about any of the items that we discussed or anything that might be on your mind otherwise. So we'll go ahead and get started. We have a lot of construction projects that are going on right now in Lake Havasu City. One of the most notable areas is Lake Havasu Avenue. And so Lake Havasu Avenue over on Acoma to Kiowa is getting some major work done. Some may recall that we had a major waterline break that occurred there about 8 months ago now.
Yeah.
And when that occurred, we went to work right away to get supplies to redo that area. Unfortunately, we've been plagued also with the supply chain issues that everyone else is going through. So at the time, we decided to do just a patch of the roadway. It made for a really rough roadway, but we did a patch as a cost-saving measure, knowing that we were going to fix the infrastructure underneath the roadway. So we started to order all of the supplies to fix the infrastructure under the roadway, and then the supplies just weren't coming. And so we were told that they would get here in October. October came and we got some of them, and then November came and then we got some of them. And then finally in December, we got the very last valve that we needed to do the repair work, and now we are able to do all of the underground infrastructure work. What that means, though, is that Lake Havasu Avenue, which is one of our major thoroughfares to go north and south in our community, is down to maybe one lane of traffic at a time while they're doing this work. So the road work is happening and occurring. It'll now be paved and it'll be very smooth, just like the Upper McCulloch area when it's all done. And are we still anticipating an April completion date for the entire project?
Yeah, looking at hopefully April, end of April for a completion date. Yeah, you're right. But to your point, a couple of $5,000 to $10,000 valves held up a project that cost $1.9 million. And so that's what we're dealing with on that regard. And it's nice to get past because our citizens were saying, hey, what's going on with that road? Why didn't you do a better repair over there? Well, we didn't want to spend $80,000 on road improvements that we were going to have to rip up this month. So that's what's occurring. And of course, we're getting all the emails and phone calls saying how wonderful the road construction is right now.
Yeah. Just know when it's all done, it's going to be really fantastic, and we'll be able to not lose your teeth as they shatter across the roadways that you've been driving on. So that project is going forward, and just have a little bit of patience as that occurs, or try to use some alternative routes over the next month or so while that work concludes. Just this past week, or this week, we had our annual planning session. That's the first opportunity that the City Council has to meet with the City Manager and City staff as we start talking about priorities for the upcoming budget. And so it's, I like to call it opening day for budget season. That's when Council talks about where we have been, where we would like to go. We get a financial update from our Administrative Services Director about the budget outlook, the forecast, and how our revenues are coming in. We spend a whole day going through all of these different priorities. And a few of the things that have come up, you might have read in a story in the newspaper today. So they did a really fantastic job of outlining some of those items. One of the things that we did a little bit differently this year during the planning session is we moved up council priorities to the front end of the meeting. Generally, it was at the end of the meeting. So after we received all of the updates from our amazing staff at the city or comments from public, we would then have discussion from the council perspective. But by then, people were pretty tired and no one really was talking about it. So we thought, let's move that up and get those priorities out right away. And so we kind of did a round robin approach to it. Each council member had an opportunity to bring forward one public policy issue or item. They were able to make a pitch, if you will, to the council for 3 or 4 minutes. And then the council spent 3 or 4 minutes just to gain consensus if that should be an item that moves forward or not. It really was a pretty interesting experience to go through. We did the round robin. It went really quick, and we had some really great discussion, as much as you can have in 8 minutes. But with that 8-minute discussion, the items that were gained consensus to move forward will now come back to a public hearing during one of our regular council meetings for further discussion, public input, and public discussion as well. But some of those highlights, one of the conversation was a discussion about call to the public. Currently, our city code has a requirement for call to the public, which the council fully supports, and that was very clear during that discussion at the planning session. But it was the location of where call to the public would like to go. Currently, it's at the beginning of the meeting, and so we sometimes could spend anywhere from 5 minutes up to 2 hours listening to public comment that's not on the agenda at all. And state law prohibits us from having any discussion during call to the public. So citizens come in, they share their thoughts, concerns, ideas, and the council listens intently, but we can't have a two-way conversation. We have to maybe have that for a future discussion item, if that even is what could occur. So some members of the council didn't really like that format. They didn't like the uncertainty of the amount of time. And of course, our council meetings are business meetings. There's folks that come into our business meetings that are looking for liquor licenses, or they're looking to get a building permit or a zoning issue. And to have uncertainty, some of the council didn't think that was a good thing. And so there was discussion to move call to the public to the back of the meeting. So it'd be at the end of the meeting. And we, based on consensus, will try that out. Currently, the city code gives me, as mayor or the chair of the meeting, the ability to move items around on the agenda. And so we'll try that starting as early as our next meeting on the 14th of February, moving call to the public to the end of the meeting. Still, of course, encouraging public discussion and public input, but it would allow for us to conduct the official business of the city and then hear any comments from the public on that. We also talked about the start time of the meeting. Currently, our council meetings start at 6 p.m., but they can range again in length from an hour to 6 hours, depending on the items that are on the agenda, the public discussion that occurs based on those items, and the like. And so we will have a discussion possibly of moving it up even as much as a half hour to potentially start at 5:30 and allowing more citizens to be engaged in the process. The high school civics class has a requirement to attend council meetings. And so sometimes they are with us until 9 or 10 o'clock at night and have to get back to school the next day. Of course, the business community and our citizens at large all are trying to interact with city council at some level, at some interval. And we thought the discussion went that potentially moving the meeting up might make it more efficient. So we'll have those conversations going forward. There was a little bit of discussion about our boards, committees, and commissions. Jess, if you want to talk maybe about the boards that we currently have, and then we can talk about what the discussion was.
Yeah, sure. So we have council-appointed boards and commissions and coalitions that we have. Some are standing and some are temporary. So we have our Planning and Zoning Commission. That's a very, very typical of all cities and towns throughout the country, essentially. There's a lot of action that takes place at that level. So there's decisions that are made that are finalized there, and there's a lot of recommendations that then go to the city council. We also have our airport advisory board. We have our parks and recreation advisory board. We have the board of adjustments. They don't meet regularly, but they're kind of like an appeals board for some zoning decisions that can take place. And then we also have our community resource coalition that's out there right now too. These are all boards and commissions, coalitions that are the members are appointed by the city council. They go through an application process, and they're all subject to the open meeting laws that are out there as well too. So agendas are posted, minutes are taken, how action is determined is all part of that open meeting law process that the state provides us. Some cities have more, some cities have less. So it's really kind of the makeup of what happens. In all honesty, with like our airport advisory board and our parks and recreation advisory board, it's different than the planning and zoning. And that's why I kind of mentioned the activities that happen at that level. At the airport and parks boards, there's a lot of updates and a lot of conversations that take place, but there's not a lot of action in terms of voting and providing recommendations. Airport advisory boards helped us a ton, and some ordinance and city code changes that needed to take place. Where certainly I'm not an expert, and certainly anybody other than Councilmember Dolan has a pilot's license, but we need that expertise that comes from the people that are on that board. But for the most part, there's a lot of updates and a lot of communication that takes place from that perspective. But that's our boards.
So the conversation at the planning session was, how can we make our boards, committees, and commissions more effective, or how can we interact with them better, or how do we set the expectations for what it is the council's looking for? These are boards that are appointed by the council to get feedback and provide it back to the council. We do have council member liaisons for all of the boards, committees, and commissions, with the exception of planning and zoning, because planning and zoning is all code-based, based on our development code, and so there's not a liaison there. But all of the other boards have a liaison. So how do we have that two-way conversation? And there was just some discussion at the council that maybe we should discuss that and see what it is. As just said, planning and zoning is the only commission that actually has a job. So they actually have something that they have to do. The other boards, committees, and commissions don't necessarily have it, and only do when potentially we're looking at code changes, or an interested party has something that they would like to bring forward, or how do we vet certain areas. So sometimes it can occur that we're having a meeting for the sake of having a meeting because we should have a meeting because it was scheduled, if that makes sense. And so we just want to have a discussion on what that looks like and how we go forward with that, obviously with a keen eye on public engagement and participation. We've been so fortunate over the last, I would say, 18 months or so to have such interested and dedicated citizens want to apply for our boards, committees, and commissions, so much so that we created an interview panel because we had so many folks that were interested in these different boards, committees, and commissions. And when we were appointing them at the council level, it was an awkward situation because you had like maybe a minute to try and interview someone in public versus having a committee meet and actually have a two-way conversation that gave merit to their service, and then also it gave them information about what the expectations would be on that board.
If I can add to Mayor, it's like the Airport Advisory Board, Damon Anderson is our airport manager, and he leads those conversations from the staff perspective. Councilmember Dolan is the council liaison. But though they're kind of doing maybe like an every other month kind of meeting right now, and then replacing the off month with an airport talk. So they go out to the airport and basically kind of hang out and have a conversation. There'll be topics to present, but it's more of a free flowing, just like this type of venue is, rather than a stuffy old open meeting law board or commission, right? So it's nice to have that variation and have some of those conversations take place in that format.
Yeah, there's lots of ways we gain community input and feedback, and this is just one way. So in a future council meeting, we'll have this discussion more in depth about what that looks like and get the council's take on what that looks like going forward. Another discussion we had is how are items placed on the agenda. A little over 2 years ago, we changed the process and how you get things on the agenda. Some of the discussion, the brief discussion that we had for 3 minutes on Wednesday was that it's kind of clumsy and awkward the way that it happens at a council meeting. There's an item on the agenda that says future discussion items, not only the agenda for the council, but also our boards, committees, and commissions agenda as well. And you have to have a person propose a future discussion item, and then somebody seconds it, and then the conversation just stops because it's not on the agenda and we can't talk. And so we're talking about that's just kind of a clumsy way to do that if it comes forward, then the citizens that are engaged or watching or participating in the meeting or have an interest in that item don't know the next steps, which is true because we have to go investigate whatever the item is and see if it's a code change, is it a resolution, is it an ordinance, what is it that has to be done, what action of the council, if any, needs to occur. And so we'll have some discussion based on that. There's lots of models on how to do it. Certainly the intent is always to ensure that all 7 elected members of your city council have the ability to get items on the agenda and discussions brought forward for engagement with the council. But how do we do that in the most effective and efficient way? So we're balancing, we have to meet city code and meet the needs of our citizens in an efficient and effective manner as your municipal government, and also balance the political side of your 7 elected council members having the ability to engage in those discussions. So we'll have that conversation again coming forward. And then we also talked a little bit about hangars at the airport. I know in this group we've talked a lot about the airport, most notably the runway that's getting ready to get completely resurfaced in May, which will close down the airport for about 45 days. Again, if you're not an airport user or you don't go out there, you might think, oh, that means nothing to me. But the airport is such a popular place, not only for enthusiasts that are in aircraft, but also for our everyday needs, even those that don't use the airport or think we don't use the airport regularly. If you receive packages from Amazon or the Postal Service or any of the like, you use the airport on a regular basis. If you go to certain medical offices within our community, you use the airport because they fly in the doctors and the office staff at certain medical facilities. If you're an organ donor or you're going to be a recipient, you use the airport on a regular basis. So the airport is very popular for all of us, whether we know it or not. But there's also a really strong need for additional hangars at the airport. And over the last 2 years, maybe 3 years, we've looked at a variety of ways to put out RFPs to expand the hangars at the airport and trying to determine how we could do that to ensure that there was hangar availability. Currently, we have a fairly lengthy waiting list for people looking for hangar space, but we don't have the ability to build hangars without having some sort of discussion from the city council on how we're going to do that. Our RFP approach has not been very successful, and really the reason why is the cost. So the cost of steel has been rising, and the FAA has regulations, and I mean, Jess, you're involved in on a regular basis on making those things happen, but if you want to share your perspective.
We had, I think in last year's budget, we identified $500,000, and we're hoping to build, I think, 3 hangars with those dollars. Economy hit and cost of steel increased, and we looked at, okay, let's take a look at see what it costs to build a hangar, in the present time at that point in time, and we couldn't even build 1 hangar for that price. So that's what we're looking at. Yeah. So just got put things into perspective.
Yeah, so hopefully with the discussion coming forward to council, we can excite somebody to come forward and build hangars for the use at the airport, or come up with some other solution to have some sort of certainty or plan. Now, the airport does have a master plan, just similar to our general plan, or our Public Works has master plans for water and wastewater and the like. So we know what the development of the airport is going to be based on the a master plan, and that was just done 2 years ago as well.
Yeah, 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, so that's a fairly fresh document that we're required to do with the FAA because the majority of our airport, the exciting thing about it is all of it is funded through federal or state grants. We don't spend very much money at the airport. About 8% of the total operations actually comes from the general fund at the airport. So we also had some discussion about EMS transport. Currently and forever in Lake Havasu City, we only had one EMS transport system, and that's still what we have. And that was through AMR, or River Medical. It's the only ambulance company in Lake Havasu City. So if you were to have an emergent issue, you dial 911. Certainly our fire EMS staff will roll out and meet you in your time of emergent need and triage your care. And then if you need to be transported to the local hospital, you would get a ride from the ambulance company. If you were at the hospital and you needed to go somewhere else, so maybe you had a knee replacement or a hip replacement and you were going to rehab at one of our local rehab facilities or nursing centers, you would need transport from the hospital to that facility. Or if you needed more extensive care and you were stable enough to get a ride, you might need transportation from our local hospital to a hospital in Las Vegas or Phoenix. And so AMR does all of that, and they have a certificate of necessity, or C of N, that covers a really large area. So most all of La Paz County, most all of Mojave County, and it's big. And they do a fantastic job, but there's no redundancy. So, we've worked really hard to build redundancy in all of our infrastructure in Lake Havasu City. We now have a redundant fresh water supply. We have redundancy in our wastewater supplies. We have intergovernmental agreements for fire and EMS services should we need to shift with Desert Hills Fire Department and the like. So why not also have that when it comes to EMS medical transport? And so Fire Chief Palafis gave an update to the council during the planning session about the work that's been done on the fire study that was recently released on what it would look like for us to offer redundancy in medical transport. And the chief and Jess have been very focused on ensuring that any decisions that are made are always patient-focused and patient-centered, that we're doing what's in the best interest of patients. So what does that look like, and what does redundancy in a system mean? It means that we are going to be able to add a few more ambulances to the available ambulances in our community that are manned by Lake Havasu City Fire. One of the great things that the Chief Palafis has done since he's arrived is he's really honed in on the kinds of calls that we receive and rolls out the right vehicle to the emergent issue that might be in front of us. So we already have units. We have 2 units that already are acting in this ability. We just don't have the ability to transport unless a severe emergent issue occurs. Then, of course, we would have to. But so we're working based on the discussion we had at the planning session. Council was very supportive of the idea to work in conjunction with AMR, again, the certificate holder, in a joint application to build redundancy into our system. And that item will actually come before council on February 14th?
Next meeting.
Yeah, so February 14th, that action item will come before council for us to enter into the next stage of negotiations to build that redundancy in. So if you've not experienced a need for an ambulance, that's fantastic. But those that have sometimes could wait for a particularly long time. There were stats that were given at our planning session about the number of minutes that people were waiting. And the majority of all of the calls were handled, very, very quickly and timely from an emergent perspective. But there were several that weren't, and this will help solve that issue for our citizens going forward.
To add to that conversation, the state pretty much provides there's an application process, and then provides the provider with what's called a certificate of necessity, right? So that basically it's your certificate to be able to provide ambulance transport services for this area, and you're the only one unless the state comes in and gives you one. So right now, River Medical is the only the only one that has the ability to do that. And their total area that includes Lake Havasu City is like 8,500 square miles within their territory out here. We care about the 46 square miles, not the 8,500. So we care about the 46 square miles in Lake Havasu City, and want to make sure that we can provide the services for our residents. Let's get those response times down. Let's get folks where they need to go in those medical emergency situations. And so right now the council has directed staff to start that process to provide an application, the 150-page application to the state. And if we're successful, then we'll have basically a shared or a partnership with AMR or River Medical for that transport services. And then the goal there is for the city and River Medical to enter into an agreement to make sure that we are patient-centric. Which means the closest ambulance gets to the scene first, right? And common sense, but that's not always how things work across the state and across the country. But I think that's very important for us. If we're gonna move in that direction, we have to be patient-centric. The whole concept here, thanks to the leadership of Chief Palafis and his leadership team in the fire department, is if we're successful with this and we take a look at the personnel we have right now, some of the equipment we have right now, we think we can provide more services to the residents, quicker response times, and without any additional taxes coming from our residents. So that's really important. Right now, we all of our fire calls are 75% medical. So our fire team is the first ones on the scene. They're the ones that are providing that immediate phase 1 response to ensure that if there's a heart attack or anything similar, that there's hands-on and there is a medical treatment being provided by our fire department immediately on scene. And then it's River Medical that will then show up and then take it over and provide that transport to the hospital. Well, there's certain cases where we can transport right there. What are we waiting for? Let's go. And that's the vision. That's the goal. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and you might wonder why the state is involved at all with the SC event. The reason is to ensure that everyone has access to ambulance service. So if you didn't, ambulance companies would go where the low-hanging fruit is, which obviously is the metropolitan areas, and we might not have ambulance service at all. So this thing gives certainty to those providers that they have a territory that they're going to be able to provide those services, and then they can invest infrastructure in ambulances and equipment and staff and resources. Currently, AMR has two dispatch centers within one dispatch center, and two station houses, one on the south side and one over on El Camino as well. So they have invested in our community and within their region. So we look forward to that continued partnership. And again, the action of council will be on the 14th of February. We're also, we'll shift a little bit now. We had some additional discussions at our planning session, but those are kind of the highlights of what came out of it that you'll see coming forward in additional meetings. But we are actively working on the courthouse. As many of you know, we have purchased a new facility that needed renovations so that our courthouse could move over to it. It's adjacent to City Hall at 92 Acoma, and the construction for renovation has begun. So we're still looking forward to a move-in date of December of 2023. Yeah, we're on schedule right now. So we're 1 month in.
1 month in and on schedule.
We're 1 month in and we're on schedule. So things are looking up for us right now on that. But Judge Kalali, of course, is really chomping at the bit to get into the new facility. We have space concerns where we're at now. And when we talk about space, we're not just talking about files and space for the team. We're talking about actual courtroom space. So we're having a challenge of getting cases heard in a speedy manner, ensuring that people's constitutional rights are upheld. We're making it, but it's tough, and we of course share the current facility with three other courts: the Superior Court, the Justice Court, and then of course our municipal court. When we get moved over to this new location, it's going to be fantastic. We'll have access to all of the courtrooms on an everyday basis, and we'll be able to expand the services that we currently offer to our citizens. So we have award-winning specialty courts, most notably our youth court for youth that find themselves in the court system, and then our Veterans Treatment Court, both very successful programs that have a really low recidivism rate. Meaning that if they go through the program, their tendency to reoffend is little. So like under 10% recidivism rate in our specialty courts, and our general population courts, it's about 85%. So 85% of the folks that go in on a regular court system would reoffend in some way. Why does that matter to us if we don't go to court? Because we pay all the bills. So we pay the bills for the jail that they may be in, for the prosecutor, for the judge in the courthouse, for the police officers that have to be engaged in that process. All of those things we're paying for. So obviously a lower recidivism rate allows us to use the resources we have better within our community. And it also allows those citizens to hopefully get the help that they need or the services they need to not reoffend and be good, productive members of our community. So, but courthouse is exciting. I don't know if there's anything else to add to that.
No, I mean, just to add, you talked about the veterans court, and there's a process, right? So somebody's arrested, they're a veteran, they enter into the treatment court, and there's counseling, there's drug testing, there's mentorship through the resource team that takes place. Wildly successful in Lake Havasu. And just to note, I was at a city manager conference just last week, and one of the panels, one of the conversations we had was a judge from Glendale and a judge from Mesa. Glendale is starting their own veterans treatment court, and they're trying to get the Valley cities to kind of combine and do like one for multiple cities throughout the area. And they keep on pointing to Lake Havasu City as the shining beacon of where this all started and the example of what success looks like. And I thought that felt pretty good sitting in that audience and thinking about what we do here in Havasu and how what we're doing here is spreading out throughout the state and doing great things elsewhere as well.
And the judge wants to replicate it and have a cohort court would be the next one, which would deal with folks that are dealing with dual issues. So they're in the court system for whatever reason, but they might have a drug or a substance abuse issue, or they might have a mental or behavioral health issue. And so trying to work on those areas so that we can really help the highest volume of calls that we receive, so we can lower that and ensure that they are getting access to the services that potentially could be life-saving for them. So pretty exciting stuff on that front, but none of that can happen until we get into the new building. And so that, again, hopefully it will be the end of this year. We also will be having a conversation real soon about the Downtown Catalyst Project. So just a quick recap. The Downtown Catalyst Project is something in the downtown area at Querio and McCulloch. It's the large grass lot that's owned by the city. How it all came to be was when Lake Havasu City entered into the America's Best Community competition and went through that process. Over 350 rural communities throughout the nation entered into the contest. Lake Havasu City went through various rounds all the way to the semifinals, and we were one of the top 10 communities chosen. At the end of the competition, we were a $2 million grand prize winner, with those funds going to different programs that were identified in what our economic development plan was. It was the Vision 2020 revitalization plan that was created through this whole process. That was what we won the award on. And in those, there was 5 pillars. And in those 5 pillars, we talked about education and talent supply, tourism and place development, economic development, water, community engagement, and there was projects built into each of those, and 3 rose to the top. One was the co-location workspace that was going to be championed by the Partnership for Economic Development. One was the Downtown Catalyst Project, which was going to be championed by the city because we own the property. And then the third was the Environmental Learning Center, which was going to be everything about water. And so monies were divided up on those 3 different projects. $1 million was allocated to the Downtown Catalyst Project, and $500,000 was identified for the Downtown Catalyst or the Downtown Co-location Center, which is actually happening. Their grand opening would happen this month, I believe, at the end of February. That's that building behind Sanchez Hawkins Jewelry Store.
Yep.
It's a 2-story, or it's a tall building. Is it 2 stories?
Yeah, they believe it's 2 stories.
Okay, yes, it's 2 stories behind the jewelry store on McCulloch. That's going to be a co-location center is where entrepreneurs can go if they just need to rent a conference room for a day, or maybe they're a startup and they don't have the funds to be able to get a brick and mortar, but they do need an office of 100 square feet. They can rent that, or maybe they just like working in a collaborative environment and they want to work in sort of like a coffee house experience where there are high tables, all working on something different, but they have kind of that energy around them. That will be managed by PED when it opens its doors again at the end of this month. But back to the Catalyst Project, that's what the city is to do. As originally envisioned, it was going to be a public-private partnership. So a portion of the property was going to have development on it with high-density uses like coffee shops, eateries, retail, things that would really generate traffic. And then there would be a public component to it, which would be like an outdoor gathering place with maybe park-like amenities. So we looked at a variety of ways to bring partners into the deal. And every time that occurred, it was turning into public. And so that was never the agreement. And so although it wasn't always public with city dollars, it was public with maybe ASU or tourism or other things that are still taxpayer dollars, just not local taxpayer dollars. And that, again, was not the agreement. The agreement was it was going to be some private infusion of money in that area. And we just could never bring it to fruition. And we've been trying since 2016. And so a couple of years ago, we said, well, we own the property. Our citizens love the property. They do lots of things at the property as far as like arts and craft shows and beer and brats events and all sorts of different things that occur on there. Hot air balloons, which I saw driving in this morning, launched from that area. So lots of things occur, but how do we make it more usable for our citizens? What can we do that it's user friendly? And we've had some of those groups come to us over the years saying, when we have our event, there's not enough power and we have to bring in generators, or there's no restroom facilities, so we have to bring in porta potties, even if we want to have just a 2-hour pop-up craft show, and we could do some things that make it a little bit easier. In addition to that, citizens that are in walkers or wheelchairs or use a cane, are strollers. You think it's a flat lot until you actually go walk the lot. The topography of it, you do kind of have to walk uphill to get to it, and it's grassy, so it's hard to maneuver around it. So we set out to see what could we do with the money we have set aside and what that would look like. And we hired Dig Studios, and they have gone through a really lengthy public engagement process, engaging citizens at large, the downtown business community, our Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, which is actually taking the lead on the effort. And they have designed stuff, and it's coming to council soon. So I say stuff because I don't know all the details yet until it does come before council. But it has been vetted, and the conversation at the council is we had $1 million for it. We spent money on design, so I think we're about $850 left.
Yeah,
about
800, yeah.
800,000 left of the winnings from the ABC competition, and bathrooms are expensive. And so does the council have an appetite to invest more money than is set aside in the winnings or not? And if we do, how much? And if we do, on what components of the project? So I know you and your team have put it together more.
You missed the headline, Mayor.
What's the headline?
The headline is that we've applied, and we're very hopeful for another $1 million grant for that project from State Parks. So that's we've been trying to do what we can to minimize the impact in terms of the cost to the residents, and maximize the benefit. And so we haven't gotten it yet, but we applied for it. We got some really good feedback from State Parks, and we're hoping to inject some additional dollars into it. In this case from grants. This will come before council, looking at probably next month in March, might sneak into April. But at that time, we need to have a conversation amongst the community, amongst the council, on what we want that space to look like. We're developing the budget right now, so based on what we want it to look like and the cost, including the grant dollars and ABC dollars, we need to have a dollar figure in the budget that council can take a look at here in June for the next fiscal year. So. In terms of what that project will look like as far in design and otherwise, staff would bring in a couple different options to council, and we need to pick one and move on. And we'll be doing that here very, very shortly.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing the headline up. $1 million. That we approved that in our council meeting last week. So yeah. I'm always moving forward. So that's in my rear view.
There's a lot
but really
going
important.
on. Yeah, a lot
so we
going
get
on.
that $1 million. Mm-hmm. So moving on to the second bridge, there's been some discussion in the media about a second bridge and a study and what that looks like. So the second bridge really has been an effort of Representative Biasucci. So Representative Biasucci, along with the leadership of Senator Borelli, really have been working over the last couple of years to identify some funds available for a second bridge, or what a second bridge might look like. And so they were able to successfully get $200,000 set aside in the general fund of the state budget to do a safety second bridge study. And so the word safety, that's important because that's how the legislation made it work to get the money. And we're now embarking on that. So two council meetings ago, I believe we approved the firm to be able to do that, or the agreement to be able to do that and get those funds from the state. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a bigger slice of the pie than just a second bridge or a safety corridor, because the way the legislation was crafted, we have that ability to do so. So we're going to take a look at what the entire island looks like, what the future of the entire island could look like. So in 5 decades from now, we would expect that the island to be fully developed. All of that vacant land that's out on the island is state trust land. And state trust land is lands that was given to the state of Arizona at statehood to be used in trust for 12 beneficiaries. The most notable beneficiary is the K-12 education system, but there are 11 other beneficiaries for that. Their sole mission is the highest value of the property, not best use, not best for the community. Although they do try those partnerships, but it's all about the money to ensure the K-12 system is funded through this mechanism. So we would expect it to be fully developed. So what does that look like? And how many cars does that mean? And how many people are going across that bridge? What type of safety measures would we need over there? And that's what this study is going to take. You've heard me say it in this forum before. We talk about the second bridge a lot. Do we need a second bridge because we've been talking about a second bridge since the 1970s? Or do we need a second bridge because the traffic counts warrant it? We don't really know the answer to that question. And so I also have said in this forum before, if you go to Vancouver, British Columbia, there is an area that connects the north and southern part of their community. I always forget the name of the bridge, but it's over there by Stanley Park. And it's only 3 lanes. And Vancouver has multiple millions of people that live there. And on morning commute, there's 2 lanes going one way and 1 lane going the other. And on afternoon commute, vice versa, so that people can traverse across that bridge. I don't know why it's only 3 lanes, but it seems to work. And I've been caught up in traffic there multiple times as I'm trying to get through it. And it seems to just be what it is. I'm not saying that's what Havasu should be, but we need to take a look and see what a second bridge is necessary and what it needs to be. So we only know what's happening in Bullhead City. Clark County, Nevada, is putting in a second bridge across over by the Anderson Fieldhouse. Just a normal concrete standard bridge. The price tag is over $50 million.
It was $53 million a couple of years ago, and I'm sure that is exactly the same as it is today.
Yeah, so it's expensive, and we don't have $53 million to do a bridge, and our bridge is a little different. We have already secured, so we've done all the planning for a second bridge. So we're still moving forward with planning because that's what we need to do. But we have the land on the island already fee simple. We own that land for where the bridge would come on. And then we have a right-of-way agreement with state parks over on the mainland side to get on there. We're not going to be able to just have a second bridge and then people are going to go find their way to it, because the second bridge, you would have to turn off of the highway. You would have to then be on the Mesquite London Bridge Road section there in front of In-N-Out, do that crazy S-curve, and then turn left to get across, onto this bridge. If you're carrying a trailer of any type, you are not doing any of that. So that's not going to happen without an interchange of some sort. So off of the highway, you're going to have some sort of a ramp that connects it. So that's another $50 million at least. And the only number we have there is based on what the interchanges they're doing up in Kingman. And so we kind of have some ideas of numbers. I mean, their interchange is up to $150 million.
It started at $70 million. In the last update we got a couple months ago, the ADAP budget went from $70 million to $170. It's like, what is happening right now?
Just for their interchange. So we're planning, we're looking, and we're doing, and we're so grateful to Representative Biasucci and Senator Borelli for their efforts to get this money so we can actually do a proper study, so we can have a proper conversation with the community. Because right now we all just have opinions and we all talk about it. My stance on it is we'll do whatever's right. We just don't know what's right yet, and this study will tell us. Now, for those that say that the island is already has too many people on it and it's not safe in its current capacity, let me just reassure you there are some things that we've done from a public safety standpoint over there. All of those homes are sprinkled. They're required to have sprinklers. So if there was a fire of any sort, that minimizes the risk. Also, on large events, we do have a command trailer that we station over there. Certainly, we have fire and police boats and all of those that should that occur. So we do have safety protocols already in place for what is currently there. We also just recently learned, and I'm going completely off script enough of a vague
all right, we're done here.
memory. Yeah, but we just learned about the traffic on there is like per capita, it's not very strong. Where was that in the fire study?
Well, we take a look at some analysis I did when we had a recent rezoning application that came before our P&Z and council, and we dug deep in terms of the amount of full-time residents that live on the island, and it was like 580 some that are full-time residents that are on the island, and then so we. Our police chief, fire chief, our city engineer, development services director, we all kind of sit down and talk about what are the impacts to additional homes on the island. If the P&Z and the council are going to consider a rezone, we got to make sure that that we're comfortable with any outcome, right? And provide those recommendations. I think it's important too, Mayor, is that we're not. The study itself isn't. Do we need one today? Do we need a second bridge tomorrow, or 10 years, or 50 years, or are there, from staff's perspective, are there triggers? If we get to a certain population or demographic on the island, does that automatically trigger the need for a second bridge? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. That study will help us determine that as well too. So we always want to be forward thinking. We want to be thinking, 10, 50 years down the road. I think we'll talk about water here shortly, and that's the same approach. The other immediate need for a second bridge would be if we run out of room on the London Bridge for all the locks that are on there. But
So well, that's a good segue. We'll go right into water. There's been a lot of discussion about water and lots of different fronts. So we'll cover a few different areas of water. So one area is obviously we're in a drought. But that's not a surprise. We've been in a drought for many, many years. Some say it's the biggest drought in 1,200 years on the Colorado River system. We've talked about this before, but the Colorado River is a federally managed water system, water delivery system managed by the Bureau of Reclamation. The law of the river is very, very complex. There was actually an article in the paper today about the laws from 1922 and how California is taking the position that they have senior water rights based on the law of the river compared to Arizona and Nevada, or compared to the other 6 basin states. So there's 7 basin states starting in Wyoming and ending here in the south with Arizona and California. And so it's very complex and it's very complicated. And the good news is that Lake Havasu City is in a good spot. We've been very forward thinking when it comes to water and water futures for our community. We have water entitlements for just over 28,000 acre feet of water. Today we use less than 14,000 acre feet of water. So we're in a really good position when it comes to water. Now, there are some discussions that we talk about, and we say the word wet water shortage, and sometimes you might hear paper shortage. And so, again, because the law of the river is very complex and very complicated, and it's been litigated for decades. So we had the 1922 law of the river that kind of created it all. Then was that in the 30s when the dam came, Parker Dam? 22 was the initial, and then the Parker Dam, I think, was in the 30s. Yes, so in the 30s, there was actually the governor of Arizona at the time literally stood at the construction site of the dam and to prevent the construction of the dam. So it's very, very complex on how it all comes together. Just to be told that we're in a good spot when it comes to water. The wet water shortage, what that means is I had said we use a little less than 14,000 acre feet of water today, which is less than half of our entitlement. Is if the Bureau of Reclamation, which they have never ever done before, but they've also never called a shortage on the river either, says to us, you're currently using 14,000 feet. We're only going to give you 12,000 acre feet this year. So that truly is going to be 2,000 acre feet that we're going to have to cut somehow, some way, because we're not getting it. Again, unprecedented, but we do need to plan for the future on what could occur. So we have those conversations. So that's wet water. And then when a paper shortage is we have a little over 28,000 acre feet of water, Bureau of Reclamation says, okay, now you only have 26,000 acre feet of water. And so on paper, they take the 28 and make it 26, but there's no immediate impact to us, if that makes sense. So those are kind of the definitions, the real basic level of wet water shortage and a paper shortage on water. Again, we're in a good position when it comes to water. Again, we're using less than half of our entitlement for water. And so a lot of times when we have conversations, people are saying that, we already have enough people in our community. We just need to quit building. We don't have enough water, which it's easy to draw those conclusions. And I completely understand how folks can draw those conclusions, but we have planned for our future. And so we're building into our future with very smart, thoughtful policy and thoughtful building plans to ensure that there is a Lake Havasu City for tomorrow. If we quit building today, we would not have a Lake Havasu City of tomorrow, because we wouldn't have our next generation of teachers or police officers or nurses or the like to be able to provide the services to our citizens. So we'll continue to have smart, thoughtful growth, which is important and paramount to any community, while being mindful on water. And we've been very mindful on water for many decades in Lake Havasu City. Today, we actually use less water than we did in the 1990s, and our population is considerably higher than it was in the 1990s. And so we'll continue to do that, working with our citizens, because the secret weapon we have here in Lake Havasu City is our citizens. They are so active and they are so engaged in this process that we are not using less water today than we were in the 90s just because by sheer luck. It's literally because our citizens do what's right. We don't have grass in our front lawns. We don't have extreme wastes of water anywhere throughout our community. We all collectively have come together to ensure that that doesn't occur. And we've also done a lot of smart practices from a municipal standpoint. We do a lot of water reuse programs and reuse water in our parks and Purple Pipe, which is effluent water, and Junction Well. Yeah, thank you. I mean, we do a lot of things, and we'll continue to do a lot of things as technologies change, and we'll be able to ensure that we have our water future going forward. So we have to have that careful balance of those two different components of being good stewards of the water and also having smart, thoughtful growth to ensure the sustainability of our community. So it's a balancing act that we're always doing. So then we start talking about water conservation and our water conservation plan, and that's what's been in the news locally over the last couple of weeks. And in 2020, the City Council adopted our updated water conservation plan. So we have a water conservation plan. It's about 75 pages. It's a long document that kind of details and outlines water conservation policies and items that we can do as a community and that we are doing as a community going forward. We also have a code section in our code today for, I believe it's called currently waste of water, is how it's currently worded.
It's something along those lines.
Yeah.
Like water.
Like water waste or something. And so that code section is what we were looking to update. And so the City Council met a couple meetings ago, and we unanimously passed an introduction to update that ordinance. And on there, we had some feedback from the council that they wanted certain items changed and adjusted. That was then brought for a second reading or for final adoption, and those changes were incorporated in there. And at that point, the conversation from the council with new information, new thoughts, new ideas came forward, and we just couldn't get across the finish line. We just didn't have a consensus of the members of council on that document the way it was written. So we've tabled that item, and we're now it's back in Jess's hands to reevaluate based on all of the feedback the council gave. And when I say that, we didn't really give very much feedback, but we'll be able to find out through community engagement what the community is interested and how we can move forward. But what that means is that the current policy called waste of water still's there, and what would have been adopted would have been an updated version of that. So instead we have an outdated version of that still has fines associated with waste of water versus a focus on conservation. So, but we'll come back at it. The conservation ordinance that we were talking about basically was just to give certainty to our citizens based on the tier shortages that the federal government's going to declare. So tier 1, which we're already been declared, a tier 2 has already been declared, tier 2A, which is what we're in now, a tier 3, and then going into a wet water shortage. And so we were just trying to clarify what that would look like. A lot of it was real basic stuff like when you're brushing your teeth, turn off the water in between. When you're shaving, do the same, which seems so common sense. But if you don't do that, it's not so common to you. So just by having that conversation, you'd be like, oh yeah, I can totally do that. Or in between you're washing a dish or rinsing it off and leave the water running as you place the item in the dishwasher, just turn the water off. Again, it's just normal practices that we're doing, but not everyone necessarily is doing that. So also irrigation. The city has done a really fantastic job. If you go to the Lake Havasu City website, outlining and detailing what are drought resistance plants and landscaping, and what that looks like for your community or for your particular neighborhood on how you want to do that, but also the amount of water that needs to be used. I would venture to say through this whole process, I was educated. I would not have known this on my own, as we all use and over-irrigate our plants in our yards today. So if you have a 7-day-a-week interval on your timer for even 10 minutes, too much. You are using way too much water for your irrigation. Again, I would never believed it because it's so hot out here. I need more than 10 minutes of water in a day. But yeah, it's too much. We talked with our expert, Dr. Doyle Wilson, who knows this stuff in and out, and has been with the city in either an official capacity or on contract as he is now for 20 plus years. He's also a local instructor at our colleges here in our community. He's an expert, and he'll tell you that if you're doing it 7 days a week, it's too much. So I know those clocks are complicated. So if you get a chance, go home and change your clock and lower the number of days you're watering. That would be very helpful.
We want the roots to grow downwards, right? So by once a week, and depending on what kind of plant it is, but like once a week with a deeper, more volume of water once a week, then a little bit of water every week. That means your roots and your trees and your plants are fortified, and that's what that's about. Basically. Again, just real quick. We're very cognizant as a city that when we talk about things that there's conversations that occur in the public and newspaper articles that are generated. So right now the city's talking about a wet water shortage, water conservation. In the end, right now we just need to continue what we're doing and be smart about the water that we use. The whole conversation with water conservation and alluding to the wet water shortage is for a possible future scenario that may or may not ever occur, right? But we can't be thinking about tomorrow. We're going to be thinking about years and decades from now, and trying to figure out what that might look like. Again, it's a possible future scenario. Right now, we're okay. We just need to keep on with the water conservation measures that we have right now. But should we put something into place in case something happens down the road? That's really what the city and the council are striving to accomplish.
Yeah, so in addition to updating the code section on water conservation, we also have another component that can help do this, and we know it works, and that's through rates. And we had the water process that we did rates is we used to have a winter quarterly average. So we would take the 3 best months out of a 4-month period in the winter, and we would average that together, and that would basically set your base charge for your water rates for the rest of the entire year. So it worked so good that we had citizens for those 4 months taking showers at their gym instead of taking a shower at their house.
Seriously.
To conserve water.
Yeah.
And so we know it works. It changes behaviors. And so we will be taking a look at our water rates and our utility rates when it comes to water, wastewater. We did this about a year and a half ago now, or a year and 4 months ago. And in October of 2021, we adopted a rate structure. Well, we really did it in July, and it caused some issues with our multifamily housing. And so we came back and tried to solve that issue on the short term. And when we did that, that was October 26th. We knew that the new rate structure that we set, we were going to spend into fund balance, which was balances that we built in. So we're spending more money than we're actually collecting right now on our rates. We knew we were going to do that, and we were going to do that for a 1-year period because there's a lot of seasonality built into our water system because we have winter visitors or winter residents that live here in the winter. And then, of course, we have summer residents that live here in the summer, plus the tourism component. So we have flexibility, or we have fluctuations in the way the water is delivered. And so we wanted to see what it looks like on a whole year based on that cycle. We did that. The council adopted a contract with Willdan Financial to bring them back, take a look at our water and wastewater rates. And when we say that, we're not talking just rates, like what you pay on your bill, although that's what the end result is that we all feel as ratepayers. But they took a look at our infrastructure based on a 10-year outlay and then a 5-year capital improvement outlay. So these are pipes and pumps and stuff that makes all of that work. And what we're going to need from an infrastructure component, what we then need to just pay our plant operators on a daily basis, the equipment that they need, the chemicals that we need to treat the water, all of those things go into this. And then we shake it out. And at the end of the day, there's a rate structure that comes together. But if we focus that rate structure based on conservation, then we also can see some water savings that way because citizens just naturally start using less water. And again, we know that because we use that winter quarterly averaging for more than a decade. I don't even know how long that was in, but it was very cumbersome. It was hard for citizens to calculate, but those that figured it out, like I said, they would shower elsewhere, and they wouldn't let any guests come over during
or
Christmas
not
time.
shower at all.
Yeah, they were serious about it. So we hopefully don't get to that extreme, but we'll take a look at that side of the equation as well. We are in the legislative session currently. The city has a few priorities at the legislature. This year, we do have a new firm that is representing us down in Phoenix. So certainly Jess and Anthony, myself, my colleagues on the council, we work with our local delegation, Senator Dobrelli and Representative Biasucci, Representative Gillette on a regular basis. We also engage other folks, but we can't do it all because there's over 1,000 bills introduced at the legislature. It's too much. And so we have to have a firm that helps represent us down there on our priorities. Our priorities this year are, and you'll all be able to meet our new representative, our new firm at our next council meeting. You won't be able to meet him in person, but he'll be on TV joining us on Zoom. And we'll be able to have a conversation with him as the council and as citizens to get to know him. Really great guy, really well respected at the legislature. So excited for everyone to be able to meet Nick and his team and all the great work they're doing for us. But really the two areas that we're focused on the most, except I've told you all before, the biggest game we play during legislative session is on defense. How do we push these bad bills away from us? We keep pushing, and that's the most of our work. But we do have a couple on offense, and that is the SLIF funding, which is the state lake user improvement monies. Those are our gas tax dollars that are paid at the pump when you put money in or fuel into your boats. Those monies have come back traditionally to river or lake-based communities to do development in those areas. The way I describe it, the easiest is if you ever have been on our lake before, the Arizona side is beautiful. It has campsites and bathroom facilities and all of those things. The California side has nothing. That's the difference between SLIF and non-SLIF. What we've used the funds for are police boats and fire boats and command centers. This year, we just got the grant for Site 6. Mm-hmm. So Site 6, that ramp that is like this will now be like this. Mm-hmm. 15% change. It won't be as slippery. That'll be a nice addition. But really pushing those to get permanent funding. Representative Biasucci in the House and, of course, Senator Borrelli in the Senate were able to get a 3-year funding on that. Was it 3 or 2?
2 years.
2-year funding on it. We're in our last year, so we need to get that back up and running. And then our final priority is
shocker.
Short-term rentals. If there's some bills moving through, we worked really hard last year with it. We'll continue. To work on that front to have a local control. As we've always said, we're not trying to get rid of short-term rentals. We've had them here since Robert McCulloch built this community. Just trying to find a way to manage them and allow our neighbors to sleep at night. So that's really where it comes from our priorities. We do have Senator Borrelli here with us this morning. So you want to come up, Senator Borrelli, and say hello for a second. And as always, the partnership we have with Senator Borrelli is unbelievable. He's a guy that answers his phone always and does what's right for us. So thank you, Senator.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Council member, right there's in the back. I have to say this. I'm so glad to be here away from the occupied territory of the state of Maricopa. And, having been a former council member and being in the state legislature, and I'm seeing how all the other cities are run, let me tell you something, folks. If there was like a rating, 5-star with diamonds, Lake Havasu City is kicking butt compared to the other cities. Here's an example. Some of the cities actually have a tax on rental property. So they charge a renter to rent, okay? Tax is renter. And then, of course, a food tax, your groceries. There's 65 cities in the state that actually tax groceries, which is amazing. And they all use the same excuse. If you guys eliminate that tax, we can't do it, then police and fire is going to collapse. We're not going to have money for schools. Some kid's going to start, set the school on fire, and there's not going to be a fire department to put it out, and the police won't be there to arrest the arsonist. That's a complete myth. It's always a scare tactic. And I can tell you, Lake Havasu City is doing a heck of a lot better job. We don't tax food. You don't tax rental properties. It's ridiculous. But, with the Wayfair money, cities are actually getting a lot more money than they would. So these are the kind of crazy things that goes on in Phoenix. Like I said, Mark Twain said, if you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you read it, you're misinformed. Rings truer today than ever before. So, they always have something in the newspaper to just, trash us and give the other side a pass. But right now, the Senate just passed out a budget. Everybody calls it the skinny budget. There's nothing skinny about that budget. What it is a baseline budget to keep the trains running, keep the cities or keep the state agencies functioning, DPS, everything. So that creates certainty. Now, to say that this is a skinny budget is really furthest from the truth. This year, we had a lot of one-time spending last term, but we actually this year's spending budget is at $15.8 billion. Okay, now billion, yes, with a B. I know that's. It's about $2.5 billion less than what we did on one-time spending, which went to roads and infrastructure and so on and so forth. But previous budgets were a lot less than that too. It was like, 13 billion, 12 billion, but the state is growing. But what we've done is we put a 5% increase in K-12. We put more funding in for new school construction and maintenance and so on and so forth. So this is not a skinny budget by no means. Now we'll actually have almost a $2 billion surplus that we can negotiate with the governor on priorities, because we all have priorities. Our district has priorities. I know Leo has a priority. Mm-hmm. I have a priority. So the others do on infrastructure, and some have other programs that they want to get funded. So we know that's on the table to negotiate what we're going to do, but we're not going to be held hostage. In past, governors always come down and they say, here's my budget and you have to fill it. No, it's the legislature that creates the budget that expends money and appropriates money. So what we're doing is we're taking better fiscal control of that. We had to do this because we're in a recession. They say we're not in a recession yet, but inflation is at 9%, statewide average, 9%. And with eggs prices ranging from $5 to $9, and you want some of these cities want to tax that, and some of these cities actually it's a 1% to a 4% sales tax on food, and which is ridiculous. That's a tax on the poor. It's actually punitive in nature. You're actually taxing people to survive just to eat. This is what I can say is Lake Havasu is doing a heck of a lot better job without having a food tax and rental tax, because we have a great police department, we have a great fire department, and guess what? Kids are not falling down the street lighting the school on fire. So anyway, but these are the kind of things that we're trying to get done. So we don't know what the governor's going to do. She says she's threatened to veto the budget because it doesn't spend enough. Well, oh my God, $15 billion package right now. And like I said, this is a continuation. And by the way, this was a bipartisan budget we passed out last year. Democrats were on board, even with the baseline funding. There was extra money in there for other projects, but one-time spending that's not being done this year. So this is the baseline budget. It was passed out bipartisan last year, and I don't know why they didn't get on board this year, but we can all imagine. But anyway, this is what we're trying to get done. We passed out of the Senate. Now the House is going to have to do it next week, and of course we're just going to keep moving on with that. So I just want to give you a good report. Lake Havasu is in better shape than the other cities in the state. Trust me on that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Senator Borelli, and thank you for your leadership. Like I said, he always answers the phone, always is available. Usually with me, it's late at night because they're in session all day, and of course, we're working all day, and he's a great friend to Lake Havasu City, so thank you for that. Next is we're going to open up to questions. But before we do that, Senator Borelli talked about the inflation. You might hear in our local media that we have record sales tax collections, and each month continues to be higher. Over the last 2 or 3 months now, the inflation rate's higher than the rate we're collecting. So although dollars and cents, it looks like we're making more, we're actually in a deficit on those collections based on the inflationary costs. So just keep that in mind. But I do want to introduce a few of my colleagues that are with me today. We have Vice Mayor David Lane. Thank you for being here. And we also have Councilmember Nancy Campbell. Thank you for being here, Nancy. And then Vice Mayor Lane is going to go around with a microphone. We do have one question that was put in, if you want to catch us, and then we'll go around the room.
Did have a question about benches under the bridge. Why are they missing? What's going on under the bridge on that the city property down in the village area? I think we talked about maybe an update too in recent months about there's cracks in that pavement, and that concrete, and the city set aside some dollars in our budget to repair that area, rip out the concrete, put new concrete in, make it look nice, get rid of those trip hazards and so forth that are down there. We had $180 $90,000, I think, was budgeted for that effort. That's a lot, right? But there's a lot of concrete and other work that needs to be done. The bids came in at $90,000 more than what we had budgeted, so we hit pause on that project and see what we can do to maybe modify the scope, do some work on ourselves, from the city's perspective. Maybe there's some work that we can do. So in the meantime, that's what's happening underneath the bridge. We removed the benches in anticipation of getting that work done, but that project is on pause right now. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Vice Mayor Lane will get the microphone to you.
Make sure you hold it close so people on TV can hear you.
Thank you. My question concerns the Colorado River water. You have an allocation, but you have an allocation based on the ODAW. When Bureau of Reclamation issues like their Tier 2 restriction, I'll call it, is that taken out of the allocation or out of the usage? And how do you determine your usage?
Yeah, great question. So we don't have the answer to it because it's never happened and it's unprecedented. So the Bureau of Reclamation is the water master, so that they really are in charge of what that looks like. The Bureau of Reclamation asked all of the basin states to come together and bring forth a plan. Most of that you might have heard in the news this past summer when she was at a congressional hearing in Washington, D.C. Well, big surprise, we couldn't come together, all 7 states, and nothing came to be. They then extended the deadline to January 31st. And so January 31st came and went. And then on the 1st, the 6 basin states, so all 6 of Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, Nevada, all came together with a plan and sent it to the Bureau of Reclamation, California being the holdout. And California sent their own plan without any consensus from the other 6 basin states. And so they are now going to make a decision, but our water usage is determined on what our water order is, which is just shy of 14,000 acre feet. That's what we use. And our water allocation is just a little over 28,000 acre feet. And we don't know where the equation is. And that's why, as Jess was talking about, it's so important that we just plan for the future on all scenarios. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if it's going to happen tomorrow or in 5 decades. We don't know, but we just want to plan from that perspective. Mm-hmm. So.
I have a couple of questions for you. We talked in the past that if we don't use the water, we lose it. Is that still on?
Well, if we don't use the water, we lose it is only in the case that it's been happening for decades, that the water that we don't use, that other 14,000 acre feet of water that we have allocated to us just flows down the river and is used by Central Arizona or the Metropolitan Water. But it's not use it or lose it, no. That's
what our allocation that we have is we have double the allocation than we use right now. And that's because of the leadership and from our for previous councils and leadership from our city leaders. We've bought more water allocation, more paper water, as we call it, in the past. And because we bought more, planning for the future, we're not using it immediately, but yeah, I guess you could describe it as it flows downriver. But if we ever need it, we're able to capture that.
Now, the other question I have for you is that in April, we're going to be doing the construction on 95. We're going to have 2 big events that's coming up. One is the 2 boat situations coming up. And then we have construction going on right now. You're saying until April we'll have that finished up. Are we going to slow that down a little bit? Because when they start doing 95, it's going to be really a mess trying to get commuting from one area to the other. Are you planning and thinking about that? And my other question to you is, are we thinking about the pools that are being constructed here? Are you going to try to see if we can slow it down a little bit? Because every year or every 2 to 3 years, we have to dump water to keep the chemicals to work in our pools. Are you considering that as well?
All right, you're at your limit because I'm going to lose my memory. Thank you, Dave. All right, so we'll start with, I just want to finish a point that Jess had made with our water entitlements. We talk about the entitlements as it's just they're there and we're entitled to them. We paid for them. So it wasn't a gift to us. It wasn't.
Millions of dollars.
Something. Yeah, we paid for them, so they're ours. So that's our assurance. I just want to make sure that we know that these entitlements were paid for, and should something happen, there would have to be some discussion on compensation on that. So that's why I talk about it. It's very complex, very complicated, but I just wanted to make sure the point was that we have paid for these. When it comes to road work, the road work on Highway 95 is only made possible because of the fantastic leadership of Senator Borelli and Representative Biasucci and Representative Cobb, who's no longer in the legislature, but really helped get that across the finish line. They didn't go to bat for us just once. They went to bat for us twice. The first budget year, they got us all the money that they thought that was going to be necessary. Come to find out, it was going to cost more. And they went to bat for us and just said, no, we're doing it the right way, and we're doing it now, and they got us the money. But we are a little bit delayed on that right now with ADOT. So the good news on the delay is it's not going to be happening in April during the events.
Yeah.
And Lake Havasu Avenue is going to be done by then, but it will be done this year.
To that point.
Dave's got it.
Yeah, to that point, I helped get the money for the construction, the traffic part. That's Biasucci's problem.
Yeah. no, I forgot at the beginning I always do, like my normal kind of shtick on these roads is when we drive down McCulloch from Acoma to Smoke Tree, how beautiful that road is, how smooth it is, and how exciting it is. When we drive on Highway 95 right now, it's a little bit rattly, and it's time for improvement. We all agree with that. We got the money. And then you are building up this excitement, right? You feel the excitement inside, and then you're going to use that excitement when the road construction happens and we have to deal with all of the traffic snarls. But we are a little bit delayed on that front, but it will be coming forward. So
Is that how that works? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. It's gonna work beautifully. Yeah.
Did you want to talk about pools?
Oh, pools. So pools on water conservation, well, they're not being discussed at this point. Again, it's a balance of doing careful, thoughtful planning when it comes to water, and also allowing our citizens to live. So we don't have restrictions on the size. We don't have restrictions on those things, but we can do certain things when it comes to water rates, when it comes to pools and those types of things. But as Jess made the point, we're okay now, but we need to plan for all scenarios on what that looks like. Pools are not part of that. You did make a comment that your pool had to be dumped every 3 years. I'm not an expert by any means. I'm not even pretending to be, but I've heard conflicting information on that's not necessarily true. We've also had a company speak at Call to the Public a couple of times that does some sort of a reverse osmosis system with the pool water. They suck it out, clean it and put it back in. I don't know if that works or doesn't work, but I'm just telling you there are other scenarios that are out there that can be discussed as we go forward. And again, technology is changing. So I know it sounds weird to talk about water and technology, but it really is changing the way that we can get it, and we'll take advantage of what all of those things are. But we just have to have plans in place to be able to direct monies or grant funds should they become available, and it makes sense for our community. But
and one of the conversations that council is having right now, or has had with the water conservation ordinance that we spoke about earlier, was a possible future scenario that's out there. And maybe if we have a wet water shortage, which we keep saying that, but like literally if we order water from BOR and they come back and say, no, you can't have that much amount of water, you can have this much. That's the wet water shortage, actual wet water shortage. So that's how we refer to that. But maybe in that water conservation ordinance, something that council's considering, maybe they move forward with it, maybe they don't. But if we get in that wet water shortage, maybe there's restrictions placed on pools. So again, a possible future scenario. And then the newspaper reacts to that and puts a poll out there that says, should the city ban the use of pools or new construction? It's like, we're not talking about any of those things. So that's where some of those rumors then take off. But, yeah, so council's thinking about it, forward thinking, possible years. If this happens, then these things might occur, and pools might be one of them, far out in the distant future.
Thank you. So, one of the things with the swimming pool, the RO system, Cal, you mentioned, this guy that has a system that does that, you basically drain 100% of your water out. He treats it through an RO system. He puts 85% of the water back in. Only 15% goes down, which is a huge thing. Two quick questions, Mayor. Is there any pressure on California, as you're on a leader of the water community, on their getting better with managing their water? And also, question, and maybe I see the police chief is here. Is there an ordinance in town that bans panhandling?
Yeah, good question. So when it comes to the waterfront, what was actually the question on water? Oh, pressure on California. Okay. Yeah, sorry, you went. I went from water to panhandling. I was like, oh, that was but we can connect it. So when it comes to water and the pressure on California, there's a ton of pressure on California, and that's why they didn't join in with the other 6 states. I mean, that's 100% why they didn't. All eyes are on California, and California is going to have to finally do something. This is the time that they're going to have to participate in some format. So that is going to occur. One of the other areas that you might hear about in the paper is there's that water transfer that the Bureau or the Department of Water Resources approved from Greenstone down in along the Colorado River, basically taking water from the Colorado and giving it to the city of Queen Creek. So we've opposed this adamantly. We've had a great coalition of regional partners that are opposed to this. We've also had the Realtor Association locally participate in our opposition to this. And we thought we were making headway until the director of the Water Resources gave approval for it. And so that occurred. There is now a lawsuit. Mojave County, La Paz County, Yuma County, and the city of Yuma have all come together in the lawsuit. So Lake Havasu was offered to participate as well, but participation in a lawsuit means money. And so we're a city within Mojave County. We pay taxes to Mojave County, so they're going to take the lead on this front, and then we'll act in a support capacity on the front. How we're going to support them is we're going to file an amicus with other river communities, which is basically a position of opposition through the court system, and it's due on February 14th. And so we'll be filing that amicus along with cities from Page all the way down to Yuma and everything in between going forward. Now, when it comes to panhandling, there is local ordinances on different components of what that looks like, and then there's also some Supreme Court rulings that allow it. So, yeah, you cannot panhandle within our community, but generally, as with anything that occurs, somebody might be breaking the law. They call the police, and of course, when you see a police cruiser come up, the law is just not being broken anymore. So it makes it very difficult. It happens to us in traffic and noise complaints. By the time the police department rolls up, suddenly there's no noise. It's interesting how that occurs. Or fireworks. There's no more fireworks and everything's cleaned up by the time the police officer gets there. So those are some of the struggles that we rely on. As always, what I say when it comes to panhandling is if it's on your heart to give, please do, but give to an organization that supports citizens in that area. So by giving money directly to a recipient on a street corner in a parking lot or otherwise is not in the best interest of our community. But again, if it's on your heart to give, please do. But there's so many fantastic organizations that help people. Give it to them, and then they'll make sure that the monies are directed to those citizens that need it most.
You may have answered this already before, but on Lake Havasu Avenue, just north of South Palo Verde, that one section that sticks out that you can't drive on, is that privately owned, and has the city tried to buy the property to make the road straight?
Yeah, so that's an interesting area. So we put in a safety median along this stretch of Lake Havasu Avenue, South Palo Verde, to just shy of, or just over Bahama in that area. And it is really awkward. So you have 2 lanes coming on Lake Havasu Avenue if you're heading north. You get to the intersection of South Palo Verde. You continue to go on and you're like, oh man, the lane's ending. I better turn right into the Memory Center or up by Saguaro, I believe. Or you better get over quick. Yeah, that's a right-of-way issue. And that's really when it comes down to planning. We talk about all of these things like in the here and now, but most of the work we're doing is in the future to make sure that we properly plan. We don't have the right-of-way there. And we did, that was back in, probably 2012. The city was working with that area to gain the right-of-way before the project even occurred, and it just couldn't happen. That roadway improvement project was a little unique because it wasn't like Havasu City's project alone. It was done through the Metropolitan Planning Organization with ADOT funds administered by ADOT. So it was a unique project that occurred. But yes, it's not happening. Also, when it occurred, different things were there. So Hastings was there, which had a lot of daily in and out traffic all day long. I mean, they were open until 11 p.m. And so they had traffic in and out of that facility. We don't have that anymore. But Speed UTV, who's moving in and has actually been in the community the last month or so, will have some additional traffic happening in there. So we don't know what that's going to look like. But until then, just use caution and merge appropriately.
We're very thankful for the founding fathers of Lake Havasu. They've done a lot of things that put us in a really good position. One of the things that if we could go back in time and I wish they would have done is give us a little bit more right away on all these streets. We have what we have. So as we grow and more traffic comes in, we can't extend the street. We can't add another lane because it'll take out homes or front yards. So so that's one of the things that it's a challenge for the city is to try to plan accordingly with the right of way that we have.
Yeah. Another one that's kind of awkward is Acoma. Like you feel like you're like scrunched in on Acoma.
On those mailboxes.
Oh yeah, I'm like, geez, what is happening? I never want to be on the far right lane on Acoma. That's another area we just don't have the right of way, but we have the traffic volumes that we need to have 4 lanes in that area. But thanks for the question, Sonia. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes, I had just one quick question. Last July, there was a surcharge put on by Republic Trash Service for a fuel surcharge of $32. I just wondered if that was for commercial property only or residents. Everybody got that surcharge because I haven't heard anybody complaining about it. And the price was, $6 a gallon for diesel back then, and now it's down to $4.19. But I'm still paying my $32
Sure.
for that fuel surcharge.
Yeah, so something unique happened in Arizona a few years back, and that was the deregulation of trash collection services. So it opened up the commercial side to the open market. And when that occurred, the city doesn't regulate commercial trash service at all. So
we can't by state law.
And you can pick who you want. So you can use Republic, or you could use, I think, Bulldogs in the area. I think there might be another one. You can use whoever you want based on the price you want to pay and the like. When it comes to residential trash service, we do control that, and we have a contract, and there is no fuel charge on residential. So it's just on the commercial side. As I'm hearing this, I've had no one else tell me that, but.
Well, I bought a triplex. They considered that a
Yes.
commercial property.
Yes.
But we just own it as a family unit.
Sure.
So, here I'm seeing this, truck come by and he does 3 or 4 stops and I pay $32 for that fuel that he's only using that,
That small little area. No, I understand.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's just on commercial customers.
One of the things when it comes to Republic Services, we're lucky to have a brand new GM that's now in Havasu overseeing the operations with fresh eyes, and we've had some very, very positive conversations with Mr. Masterson, and we're in good hands. Yeah. Is that Mark Masterson? Did I get that correct? Yes. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
I'll give you a card. Yeah, Lake Havasu Pickleball Association is having their annual pickleball tournament this month, February 24th through the 26th. We'll have over 150 people playing through the weekend. And it was 10 years ago we had 30 people in a one-day tournament at the Aquatic Center. So it's come a long way. And hopefully next week we'll open up the new 4 courts that were donated by one of our members, and he has donated over $400,000 for the city park up there for the Pickleball Association. And the Pickleball Association has donated much more, poured concrete, windscreen, shade structures, and so it's exciting up there at Dixhant Park. So everybody come on up and learn how to play pickleball. And also, we still have $50,000 to put lights up, and hopefully the city will come up with the other to finally put some lights up there at Dixhant. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. Yeah, and thank you for all that the Pickleball Association does. Lots of our citizens enjoy that sport. Mm-hmm. So we have time for just a couple more questions or comments?
Short one, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Hazmat pickup was nicely done. but it would have been nice to have the route where we had to line up a little better advertised. And also, rumor is they had to stop early because it was too much. Is there any thought about maybe having it twice a year instead of just once a year?
Yeah, thank you for that. We changed the venue over to Fire Station on Kiowa because of the flow. Yeah, you line up on College Street, and it's so popular. I don't even know how all of our citizens have all this hazardous stuff because we keep doing them, and it fills and fills and fills and fills. So quit buying hazardous stuff, everyone. We can look at expanding that. It's so popular. People love it. One of our biggest issues is that we didn't have it for several years, and with partnership with Republic Services, which has been fantastic, we've been able to bring it back. But we kind of have this backlog of things in all of your garages. So hopefully we'll get through that fairly quickly.
Support the gentleman in front of me about 2 days or twice a year. Another thing is batteries, like flashlight batteries, that kind of thing. I talked to you about this quite a while ago, and it would be nice to have some place where we can deposit them in town, the city hall, police department, someplace, the grocery store, and also the cost of this new park that's going in. People there, you don't have people in Havasu that can design that instead of paying whatever it is. You said $800,000. Is that
design? No, it was a one.
Who's ever doing the dig people. I mean, we don't have people in Havasu that can do that.
Yeah. So batteries. When it comes to that. It's a little more complicated because then we have to wait in line on the hazardous waste day and get rid of the batteries that you leave there. So we have to figure out a process there.
We're not in that business as a city. We don't do trash.
Yeah, so we'll figure some things out there. When it comes to Dig Studios and the design for the park, it's very easy to draw that conclusion. Like, can't someone locally just do that? One, it's very costly, but they went through and it was very complex. They took the direction of the wind, the way that the light, the sun, the angle of the sun by season. I mean, literally by month, and how it changes to ensure shade structures were in a different area. These are all people that are experts in their field. We don't have park designers in Lake Havasu City. Certainly some of our firms that local private firms that have done that have been partners on those types of things, but they're not experts in it. So we'd rather have it done right the first time. But so far, no money has been spent on that project other than winnings from our ABC competition. And then hopefully we'll get the $1 million grant that Jess talked about. These are all dollars that were won for that project.
Our procurement process, so we call RFPs, requests for proposals. We put together a document that says scope, and here's what we want, here's our expectation, here's what we want delivered to us at the end of the day, whether it's a service like a design or equipment or otherwise. And we put that out there. We're basically saying anybody in Havasu, Arizona, the country, we want your proposals, and we get to look at the qualifications and the cost, and we make the best decision. So we don't pick one person out of a certain area within the state and say we're going to go with you. We open it up so we can generate some competition, get the best bang for the dollar, and hire somebody that's qualified.
Yeah, and Vice Mayor Lane will take Rich from WACOG as our final comment.
Mm-hmm. Yes, good morning. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Rob Fram.
Rob, sorry.
No worries. Yeah. Rich, Rob,
I should get it right. Yeah,
it's all the same. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I just don't want to get in the way of Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager. But again, thank you for having me. I'm the Family and Community Engagement Specialist with WACOG Head Start. Again, my name is Rob Fram, and we serve all of Western Arizona, Mojave County, La Paz, and Yuma County. We have centers all throughout, including 2 centers in Lake Havasu. We have the Pima Center, we have Havasupai, and we serve at-risk children and families. And that kind of brings me to the crux of the conversation, and that is we are in need of teachers. So there are teaching positions available in the Lake Havasu area. So I do have flyers, so you are welcome to pick one up from me. The city of Lake Havasu was kind enough to blast our information out on social media, so we're greatly appreciative of that. If you have any further questions for me, please ask. I will be here and try to fulfill those answers. But yes, we do have teaching needs, and all the information you need to reach out to us is on this flyer, whether it be phone number, whether it be email, whether it be website, or what have you. We'd be happy to answer all the questions that you might have. But again, we have those needs, and WCOG Head Start has faithfully served the Lake Havasu community for a number of years. And, the early childhood is such a critical time in a child's life and learning and development, and we really want to meet those needs. And there are at-risk families everywhere, including Lake Havasu, and we really want to meet those needs and get the word out on that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So that concludes our time today, but we did want to finish with a couple of fun facts about the city. Just in the last year, our city clerk has processed 5,285 public records requests. So those are documents that people have requested that we submit based on that. In the court, we've served 21,816 individuals. So when we talked about the space before, those are the volumes we're doing. In our vet court, we've had 322 vets admitted to the court, and 230 have graduated. Our youth court, we've had 349 admitted and 247 graduated. Our Facebook has reached 880,000 people. So nearly 1 million people on our Facebook page. And happy anniversary, we're celebrating our 10th year with Coffee with the Mayor and City Manager. It was 10 years ago we started. Obviously, my predecessor, Mayor Nexon, and City Manager Charlie Casson started it. And then Jess and I came in around the same time you were with Mayor Nexon for a little bit. But and continue on the tradition. So happy anniversary. And thank you for being here each month. We appreciate your engagement in our community. A big thank you to Jerry Bracamani for making all of this magic happen for us. And Steve in the control room for those at home. We'll see you next time. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.